Hello.
Hey there, right on time.
How you doing?
Good to meet you, Jesse.
Yeah, it's great to meet you too.
Uh, the theater, BAM, it just the cinema just opened its doors a few days ago, correct?
Yeah, we opened up on Friday.
How'd
Yeah,
that go? How's it going so far?
it's going really great. We had a great first weekend back. We had big crowds, people just really excited. I mean,
Right.
it was definitely surreal to be there and watch people come back to the theaters for the first time since March of 2020. But it felt so great to have people back.
I can only imagine. Uh, I'm not in Brooklyn these days. I've been a little north of the city, but for countless years, it's my main Brooklyn theater.
That's so great. Yeah, no, I mean it's that's the thing that I like the most is that like we're really like a part of people's lives, and it was really reminded of that this weekend. That's like we've been a missing part of people's lives for so long,
Right.
and so people were so thrilled to be back.
Sounds like it was almost an emotional, or maybe not almost, an emotional
It was a
experience.
fully emotional experience, definitely.
How long have you been with BAM?
I've been with BAM since what was it, fall of 2013, so a long time
Oh,
now. Yeah.
how is it that
Yeah,
how
I don't know how we've never actually met in person because I've known your
unless
name
we
for
have,
years and that you've covered the festivals and everything, but
right,
yeah.
right, right. Unless we have, of course, it's possible,
Right, it's totally possible.
but the both of us, we just you just meet so many people, and yeah, it's a great group of people, and I think in the past, um, yeah, I don't know, but serendipity brings us together today,
Mhm.
and the return of BAMcinemaFest, which has always been not not I'm not just saying this when I just say this, but it's this the CinemaFest I've been with from the beginning since it was Sundance Selects.
Yeah, the before the beginning at that point. Yeah,
So
it's
yeah,
mhm.
so let's see. This is kind of you were there kind of when it became BAMcinemaFest around that time, right?
Just after. I think I started with the sixth BAM Cinema Fest, so
Okay.
it had been 5 years of fully BAM Cinema Fest when I
How
came
many
in
other how
2013,
many
I
years has
believe.
it been now?
It's well, this would have been the 12th year, but we
Okay.
canceled last year, so it's the 11th annual. I believe
Right.
that's correct. Yeah,
Right.
BAM Cinema Fest.
Annual less pandemics. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
The 11th, as they say, yeah, rather than 11th annual.
Right. So, but where were you guys at in the selection process? Just to get this out of the way, just for my own curiosity,
Sure.
where were you guys in the selection process last year? Where clearly at a certain point you realized we're not going to be able to do
Yeah.
this, right?
No,
But
we were. I mean, not we didn't have the entire festival booked or anything like that, but we had invited and accepted films. We definitely were in the midst of everything. We typically with the festival in June every year, we typically have a confirmation date that's mid late April, where we're trying to get most of the festival booked in, and then it was
right,
mid March when the shutdown happened. It was the first few weeks thereafter, it was all the confusion of like, oh, when will things come back quickly? Could there still be a cinema fest by June? And then
right,
within a few weeks after that, it became clear that that wasn't possible. So we had to reach out to filmmakers and say, unfortunately, we've had to cancel the festival. I mean, that was a really just a sad time. It wasn't like there was numerous films we had booked, but the handful that had it was it's terrible to have to go out to somebody and say, unfortunately, we don't have a place for you this year.
right.
And about all the people who had submitted and things like that. But yeah, we had closed that down in the midst of the process last year, but always knew that somehow, some way, we were going to have a cinema fest in 2021.
Which you are, and it's going to be from the 23rd through the 29th. So
Mhm.
it's a little bit. Is that slightly truncated from?
Yeah, it's a little smaller. It's both smaller in lineup and smaller in
Yeah,
days, and
yeah.
virtual only this year as well. It was, a lot. I mean, a lot of questions sort of as we were trying to think it through. I think we saw some really great work. Probably could have had a slightly larger festival, but we decided to sort of focus in on a tight group, especially offering just with a virtual platform and have a really like sort of tightly curated thing is what we wanted to do.
And we'll talk about the films because there is such a
Mhm.
manageable number
Yeah,
as opposed to I don't know more
yeah.
choice
We
and more wonderful films, but we can kind of go over them a little bit. But
mhm.
did so how do you handle making the virtual experience? One thing that I think nobody would have ever been able to plan this out, of course, without just having some time to, and leveraging from one another festival wise, like other festivals, see what succeeds and what doesn't. But
Mhm.
we're like some festivals have chosen to have Q&As as part of what they're doing, or like other kinds of filmmaker oriented.
Definitely. I mean, that was one of the great things that we were able to do here is while there's always been at BAMcinemaFest like a good amount of filmmakers around and Q&As, with this year with the virtual format, we have Q&As with every single program, every single filmmaker of the entire festival is basically participating in those. So it was great to be able to have that. Like, oh, it doesn't matter, and if someone has a shooting schedule and they need to be in California that same week and they can't make it out, so we have that flexibility was a great benefit to truly have participation from every single filmmaker at the talks level.
Yeah, I mean, for those who, I mean, first of all, this is a film. This is a more of a showcase because you're kind of getting the best of the, and I use that word
Oh,
very
no,
broadly.
it's very very true. Yeah, we're looking at we're obviously a lot of the films that we're playing this year have come out of Sundance and South by Southwest, and we've really always thought of ourselves as wanting to like curate the best and most interesting of what's on in the scene right now. What are the coolest new voices? And we have some
Right,
great things. There's a world premiere in the festival this year by an alumni named Oogie Pak, his film Clytemnestra, which is a really fascinating and great little film. So there's always a handful of those.
right,
But yeah, really our focus is less on trying to like find the world
premiere,
premieres to
right.
be at that sort of level and just find the best and most interesting work that we can bring to New York for the first time.
But you still, but as maybe as a byproduct of that, you turn out you really are like a filmmaker's, film festival or film showcase, what have you. I mean, and it's what I just always really loved about it is I knew that, you know, if I wasn't able to get to all the major festivals, that I'd get the best representation of the best, like through BAM Cinema Fest. So it's always been another reason of why I've been
Totally.
such a
And
champion
it's
of.
a fun process. It's a fun
Yeah,
process as well to like, to go and be able to find things, champion some really interesting voices, give them a great platform here at BAM and bring some really great work in that we've been seeing from the festival circuit.
absolutely true. And of course, you're in the center, the nerve center, I should say, of East Coast filmmaking and
Oh
filmmakers
yeah.
where they live and breathe and I mean, BAM is in the backyard or
No, it's true, and we have it's being here in New York, and being in Brooklyn. It's home for a lot of people, so it's amazing always to have that kind of hometown feeling. Your hometown place, the place that you've maybe been coming to see movies for many years, is now screening your film as well, and that can always be such a great vibe. And then also, obviously, with just the incredible press that's here in New York, and be able to present a lineup of films, maybe find some gems that were overlooked at other festivals, but really sort of resurface them and bring them forward to the New York press, and that we can really help to put films, give a second wind to them after they've had that world premiere at a festival earlier in the year.
now you mentioned Clytemnestra, which is one of the films, one of the
Hmm.
features you're showing. Another one I wanted to also hear about was Bassam Tariq's film Mogul Mowgli, because I had very early on when I started this Filmwax thing, one of the first festivals I went to, sort of on the go because it was on internet radio at the time. But I remember, I think it was might have been True False or South by, I can't remember which one, but it was with Birds. What was his last film that he co-directed?
These birds could talk.
These Birds Could Talk. Yeah. So I that goes back a long way when I had him.
Yeah.
So it's been at least 8 years.
Yeah, and that was at one of the very first BAM Cinema Fest as well. And then
Oh,
we also screened his short film, a really brilliant short film that's on Netflix,
oh,
called The Ghosts of Sugarland, a really extraordinary documentary short, pulling from his own childhood and
okay.
a guy he knew that was ended up being involved in jihadist activities, but was also perhaps being set up for, by FBI agents to sort of go that route, and there was people in the community. It's a really just fascinating sort of documentary about this experience he had with someone that he knew as a young man, and also the experience of being a Muslim American in America in the post 9/11
Mhm.
period. And this new film is just an extraordinary. So it's his narrative debut, made with and really sort of as a collaborative project with Riz Ahmed, who's just again one of my
Yeah.
favorite actors these days, such an extraordinary performer. And this really pulls all these interesting autobiographical elements for Riz as well. Riz is a rapper. The character he plays is a rapper. It's about the sort of London South Asian community, the Pakistani community there. Um, and gets at some just really interesting, I think rarely seen on screen, sort of authentic depiction of that community, and gets at a bunch of really interesting sort of visual language things. It brings in all of these things from the history of Islamic art and Islamic writing, and finds some just new ways to make images and tell a narrative. I think that we very rarely have seen on screen. So it's such an exciting debut to also see someone who'd been working in documentary to move into narrative feature filmmaking in this way. And his visual sense is just so astounding here from his first debut feature. It's really incredible.
It's interesting because we, having done this for as long as you have the programming and myself on this my side of things, I'm seeing what at the beginning of that timeline or trajectory, the clear division of fiction films and then nonfiction films or documentaries. There's more nonfiction than just documentaries, but and then a period of time where filmmakers were exploring, and they still continue to, of course, but they're exploring the hybridization
Hmm.
of narrative. And now it's like it's interesting to start to see filmmakers just taking a plunge, like Heidi Ewing. There's a bunch, but there's a number of filmmakers who have been doing nothing but documentary and nonfiction storytelling for their careers, and all of a sudden stepping in. I think Marshall Curry did it. He won an Oscar
Hmm.
actually for a short film, which was his first stepping into fiction. And it's just a really, and it's to see like these films, and they're so strong. It's kind of curious, like how
Yeah,
they're so good at
no, I
that from
completely agree.
all
It's
that
been,
other experience they bring with them.
yeah, it's been a really fascinating decade for nonfiction film. Like, as you mentioned, like True False has been such an extraordinary locus of that sort of
Right.
work. The work of Robert Greene that we've also played in BAM Cinema Fest as well is so interesting in that kind of hybridization. And Bassam's work certainly lives in that world as well. And it's always, it's interesting to me too to think about like someone a lot of these, I think one thing that's really true of a lot of these filmmakers is that they're, it's not just sort of the talking head documentary style, right? They're really thinking about this as images, as a film. And so it's not just going from something that's very much informational or even just purely journalism, but something that's already been thinking of as, oh, I'm making a film, an audiovisual piece. And so
Right.
moving into the narrative is perhaps a little bit more of a direct sort of path that way, because you've already been thinking about, about the frames that you're using and how you're telling that story, within even the documentary form.
But you probably remember it was kind of considered controversial only about 10 years ago to do anything as a documentary filmmaker that wasn't almost the variation of verite filmmaking. And now, you see that they're
Yeah,
just making
very
fiction
true.
film. It's funny, well, or noteworthy and interesting. And so yeah, so let's talk about their other films here, because like you've got one, two, three, four, five, six features. Is it possible?
Yeah,
That's
we have 6 features. We have one program that's an artist spotlight on the artist Fox Maxey, and a bunch of his most recent work,
okay.
several really interesting pieces, including an extraordinary film called Mott Means Land that just won an award at the Rotterdam Film Festival for this year.
Hmm.
And that's it's really, again, talking about Fox's work is really interesting intersection of a lot of these things that we've been just talking about, where it's documentary and things about identity, indigenous identity within America, but it's also very much, it feels very the language of the internet and these kinds of like, you know, TikTok, YouTube, sort of odd, very created artificial digital spaces as well, and finding out, you know, mixing these spaces is really, really interesting in Fox's work. There's there's a bunch of other features as well in the festival. I'm a huge fan of obviously everything, especially with the nice thing about having a curated 10 program total festival is that I genuinely love every film in the festival so much.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Christopher Makoto Yogi's new film, I Was a Simple Man, which was at Sundance as well this year. And he's been making some really interesting short films and had a prior feature that was really interesting in the festival circuit over the last few years. And this is a real big step forward for him. It's
Okay.
this extraordinary film about Hawaii and made from after the experience of his own grandfather passing. And it's sort of a narrative about a man on the cusp between, you know, life and the beyond, and sort of existing with the ghosts of the past and the ghosts of colonialism,
Mhm.
but within this current space. It's strikingly beautiful film. I think he's a huge major filmmaker to watch. Other films of the festival, Fruits of Labor, Emily Cohen Ibanez's really extraordinary documentary about a young woman who works as a fruit picker in California at the time of ICE raids and this sort of growing escalation of the Trump administration of attacks on immigrant communities, but also this really extraordinary focus on, you know, labor that's hidden, labor that we don't think about. We don't think about where those strawberries in the grocery store came from, that someone had to take them off the vine. And it's a really beautiful sort of exploration of that. Superior by Aaron Vasilopoulos is first feature, really cool genre art thriller that's got this extraordinary central performances by actual twin actresses playing twins, and has kind of that sort of David Lynch, Three Women kind of persona vibes of those sort of intermixing of personalities. Really cool thing, all shot in 16 millimeter in upstate New York. Great look to it. Ludi by Edson Jean, which is another beautiful film about labor as well. There's a lot of work that goes on throughout a lot of these films as a major theme. And Ludi is a film set in Miami, specifically in the Little Haiti neighborhood, and about a woman who works as a healthcare provider, who just sort of, you know, finds herself in increasingly difficult scenarios as she tries to find money to send back and make money to send back home. And it's an extraordinary film again about immigration and the nature of the sort of crushing nature of labor and labor exploitation in this country, with some beautiful central performance. Another great, I think that's Edson's first feature as well, and he's a really somebody to watch. And then if I haven't mentioned anything, we talked about Clytemnestra, is an extraordinary Oogie Pak film that's uh, about a group of South Korean actors who go to Greece to rehearse a production of Aeschylus, and it becomes this extraordinary discussion of like power dynamics within art making, and a domineering director and how he you know, moves through space, and how this really interesting young actress attempts to deal with these kinds of like toxic environments of this this sort of you know, art making power dynamics. And then we also have a bunch of shorts programs as
I
well.
know. I wanted. I just. I'll say. I want to just mention
Yeah.
Sasha Wurtzel, who I know through DCTV. That I used to kind of have some run-ins with her, or positive run-ins, and then also Malika Zwali Worrell, who's been on the show before. She has a Sasha's is called "This Is an Address,"
Yes.
and Malika's is called "Video Visit," and they're both part of the Intercepted program, which is one of
Yes.
the three blocks you've got here, right?
Yeah, our programmer Natalie Arasso is sort of took the lead on putting these together, and she did an extraordinary job of you know, putting these programs together.
Yeah.
Really, a lot of this work, it's we were speaking of, well, a lot of it's documentary. I believe all of it is actually could be broadly considered documentary or avant-garde work in the short film.
Right.
And it's exactly in this kind of mode that we're talking about, of these really mixings of styles. Sasha's film, This Is an Address, is an extremely fascinating sort of archival film that uses footage of the activist, the trans activist Sylvia Rivera, from I believe the early 1990s. Video Visit as well by Malika is just an utterly crushing and moving film about the interactions between incarcerated people in Rikers and their mostly parents via a video visit program that the New York Public Library runs. or the Brooklyn Public Library runs, that is both incredible because it allows for this access and these in-person face-to-face things, but also appears to be a program that may replace in-person visits. And certainly it did during COVID, but what if it stays like that forever and people lack that in-person presence? And what does that mean for incarcerated people? Yeah, there's really just extraordinary short films throughout all three of the programs. I highly recommend those. And in many ways, it's the most exciting and cutting edge work that's in the entire festival. And I fully expect a lot of these filmmakers to become sort of bold-faced names in the future.
Yeah, and so when you buy, you can buy a ticket for a block of shorts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can buy a ticket for a block of shorts. We also have, for the first time ever, is one of the nice things about doing a virtual festival. We were able to have a festival pass this year, which we've not typically been able to have in the past. So you can have a pass for everything in the entire festival. We're also doing a sliding scale on our fees as well. So we're really trying to focus on, especially with the virtual festival, I think the main thing that it brings to me is accessibility. And we want to make it as accessible as possible so that people can see as many films as they want for a affordable price for them. Have it be able to be seen even if you can't make it into BAM, and really open this work up to as many people as possible.
So you have the geographical as well as the economical.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely accessible in every sense of the word.
Accessibility to this year, which is great. An opportunity, really. It's to bring in more people into the audience.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah.
Again, the BAMcinemaFest runs from June 23rd through 29th. So you need to see it. So virtually it ends on the 29th.
Virtually ends on the 29th, although rentals that'll take place on the 29th can continue for 48 hours after, but no new purchases.
Oh, very good. 29th. Okay, that's always good. So right. So if you anything as they premiere, is that how you're doing it, or everything?
Actually, everything will just be available through the whole festival. Okay. So we don't have a rolling premieres or anything like that.
Understood.
But
makes sense for this particular. All right, great. Well, thank you. Do we get to everything? Did I leave anything out?
Yeah. No, I think we covered everything. Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
And Jesse Trussell is the senior programmer at BAM Cinema.
Senior programmer
at BAM Cinema. Yeah, I gotta try to see some of these things myself. I have not seen anything in this program.
There's some cool things in there. I definitely recommend them.
All right. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. Have a great day.
All right. You too.
Bye-bye. Bye.